What is China hiding? Well, let's just see. Here's what the coronavirus is. Now, there's been a lot of talk about it, and I figured I'd dip my toe in the water here. Of course, I'm going to have a hazmat level 3 suit on because this stuff is pretty interesting. Let's see. This is from the World Health Organization. This is so coronaviruses are a large family of viruses that cause illness, ranging from common cold to more severe diseases such as MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, SARS, Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. A novel coronavirus is a new strain that has not been previously identified in humans. Continuing on, coronaviruses are zoonotic, meaning they are transmitted between animals and people. Detailed investigations found that the SARS-CoV was transmitted from civet cats to humans, and MERS-CoV from dromedary camels to humans. What the hell are you doing around? Oh, never mind. Several known coronaviruses are circulating in animals that we have not identified yet infected humans. Common signs of infection include respiratory system. I can't breathe. Fever. Man, I feel a little hot. A cough. Short breath. And breathing difficulties. In more severe cases, infection can cause pneumonia, severe acute respiratory syndrome, kidney failure, and even death. Standard recommendations to prevent infection and spread include regular hand washing, covering mouth and nose when coughing, sneezing, thoroughly cooking meat and eggs, avoid close contact with anyone showing symptoms of respiratory illness such as coughing and sneezing. You can learn more about this right here, which we're not going to. We're going to go to this story here. Coronavirus spreads for the first time in the U.S., CDC says. Now, in my opinion, the president needs to get on board with this and stop flights, all flights going to China. It just makes sense. And don't be saying, well, that's racist. That's racist! Well, guess what? What else are you gonna do? You have to quarantine. So now we have one person here that's tested positive for the coronavirus. Here we go, the confirmed cases now. Well, that's just one. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6. A close contact of one of these patients in the U.S. with coronavirus has been infected with the illness. The first evidence that the new virus has spread person to person in this country. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported Thursday. The new patient lives with a Chicago woman in her 60s who has diagnosed after returning last month from Wuhan, China, the epicenter of the outbreak that's now sickened upward of 8,000 people. Now, let's be honest here. I think it's more people. It has to be. Because that's what just the red Chinese are telling us, technically, that we know. As far as we know in the United States, there could be more. But right now, we've got 6 confirmed cases. And whatever you do, in my opinion, do not go to China right now. Don't fly there. I don't care if there's, big booby ladies over there waiting for you. Don't go. At least 170 people have died, all in China. 6 people have now been diagnosed with the new coronavirus in the U.S., 2 each in Illinois and California, 1 each in Arizona and Washington State. This is a developing story and will be updated. And then let's go to over here. This is from the Wall Street Journal. This is today, I want to say. Let's see. Yep, today. Coronavirus triggers damage control from governments and companies. You got to understand, China is just not going to let everyone know that this is going on how bad it is. And why would they? They're very secretive. Just look at North Korea. They're the ultimate purveyors of keeping secrets. China's the same way. They're not going to tell how bad it is. Why? And because they control the internet there. Let's see. It says person to person has spread, confirmed in the U.S. We just read that. Confirmed coronavirus transmission in Illinois. Got it. Overall risk of coronavirus in the U.S. is still low, CDC says. Do you want to take their word for it? I wouldn't. Let's see. Government officials and corporate executives around the world are scrambling to limit the damage from the fast-spreading coronavirus as Russia tightened its border with China and the U.S. announced plans for a second evacuation of the Chinese city at the center of the epidemic. China, let's see, and U.S. announced plans. Okay, so the United States is pulling people out, which they should. In response to the virus, companies including Tesla and IKEA were forced to temporarily halt operations in China. Whoa, now understand, they wouldn't be doing this if they knew that these things were really messed up. There's something going on that they're not telling us, and we'll soon find out, unfortunately, when more people die from this virus. See, the moves came as 2 more countries, India and the Philippines, confirmed their first infections, bringing the total number of affected countries to nearly 20, as the total number of confirmed cases approached 8,000. India said a student from Wuhan University tested positive for the virus while visiting the southern state of Kerala and was in isolation at a local hospital. The Philippines said Thursday it recorded its first confirmed coronavirus case in a 38-year-old Chinese woman who arrived in the country on January 21st from Wuhan. Moscow, meanwhile, said it will be temporarily restrict passages through the 16 road and rail and river checkpoints along its 2,600-mile-long border with China starting Friday, though Russia's airlift National Aeroflot hasn't stopped flying to China. Smaller Russian airlines have canceled flights into China from the far eastern city of Vladivostok. A number of countries pushed ahead with efforts to extract their personnel or citizens from China. The State Department on Thursday said it's planning a second evacuation flight from Wuhan, the central Chinese city where the newly found identified coronavirus first emerged last month, offering hope for millions or hundreds of Americans still believing in the city. White House spokesman Hogan Gidley said the risk of coronavirus poses to Americans remains low. Don't trust it. And he wasn't aware of any government plans to cancel flights to and from China, which they should. He said the U.S. has taken all the precautions necessary and will continue to do so. In a briefing of the administration's efforts to combat the opioid crisis, Assistant Secretary of Public Health Brett Gua, let's call him Gua, said it was under control in the U.S., noting there has been no person-to-person transmission. There has. I just read the story. This is no case for urgent panic. I wouldn't panic. But I would remain vigilant. That's a good idea. The Indian government is seeking permission from Chinese authorities to operate 2 flights to repatriate citizens from Hubei province, in which Wuhan is the capital, and will quarantine them for 14 days. In Japan, controversy erupted Wednesday after 2 people on a government-chartered evacuation flight from Wuhan to Tokyo refused to be tested for new coronavirus. Some on social media wondered why the Japanese government didn't quarantine evacuated citizens the way other countries did. This is unforgivable, wrote one Twitter user. No more charter flights. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe told Parliament Thursday that while the government had pushed for all 206 passengers on the Wednesday flight to be tested, it had no legal power to compel them. 3 people on the flight tested positive for the virus, including 2 without symptoms, according to the Health Ministry. The 2 who refused testing didn't show any symptoms, and the Health Ministry staff drove them home in a regular car, Health Ministry official Takuma Kato said. A second charter flight to evacuate Japanese citizens from Wuhan arrived in Tokyo on Thursday, and Mr. Kato said all 210 people on board agreed to be screened. Meanwhile, immigration officials in Hong Kong secured the flight city for visitors from Hubei, finding 15 on Wednesday during searches of 110 hotels, according to Lam Shuk-yi, Deputy Secretary for Security of the Chinese territory on Thursday. Ms. Lam said 1,600 people from the province had been turned away at the Hong Kong border since the ban. Wow, to me, it just sounds crazy right now. On the corporate front, big multinational corporations, companies moved to temporarily shut down their China operations as workers remain largely in place. With the Lunar New Year holiday extended through the end of the week, the transportation links largely curtailed. Tesla chief talked about that. They're halting production in the Shanghai Gigafactory. And all 30 IKEA outlets in mainland China were closed until further notice, the Swedish furniture giant said on Thursday. Air France, part of Air France KLM, joined the list of airlines cutting service to China. The French carrier said it would suspend all scheduled flights to and from the mainland until February 9, and would operate special flights starting Friday to and from Shanghai and Beijing, using volunteer crew members to enable customers and employees to depart safely. And here we go with this story from the New York Times. I typed in, what are they not telling us about the coronavirus? And this one came up. This is from 2 days ago. It's an opinion piece, thankfully. It'll tell us that. It says, we made the coronavirus epidemic. It may have started with a bat in a cave, but human activity set it loose. Let's see. This is by David Quammen. He's a author of Spillover Animal Infections and the Next Human Pandemic. The latest scary new virus about to capture the world's horrified attention. Locked down 56 million people. Wuhan province, previously known as NCOV 2019, is a clunky moniker for the alerted threat. Let's find out what he says at the end. This is a very long-winded piece. We are faced with 2 mortal challenges in this short term and the long term. Short term, we must do everything we can with the intelligence, calm, and full commitment of resources to contain and extinguish this coronavirus outbreak before it becomes, as it could, a devastating global pandemic. Long term, we must remember when the dust settles that the coronavirus was not a novel event or a misfortune that befell us. It is part of a pattern of choices that we humans are making. And here's the Wikipedia for the Spanish flu. This is a pandemic that happened in 1918 and killed about 50 million people. Its mortality, let's go with that part. Its mortality is the most important part here. Around the globe, so the global mortality rate from 1918 to 1919 pandemic is not known, but estimated to 10% to 20% of those infected died. About a third of the world population infected. This case fatality ratio means 3% to 6% of the entire global population died from the flu. Influenza may have killed as many as 25 million people in its first 25 weeks. Older estimates say it killed 40 to 50 million people, while current estimates put the death toll at probably 50 million, as possibly high as 100 million. These estimates would correspond to 3 to 5% of the Earth's population at the time. Now I want you to look at that, what I just read there for a second. It was in the first 25 weeks right here, it killed 25 million people, may have. That's probably a good estimation. That's insane. Viruses basically don't care about what time of the year it is. And this virus that's going around now could possibly do that much damage. But if the people in charge get control of it, maybe nothing will happen to us. Maybe not.